What if I told you the amazing scene I just create using Kling AI? In this video, I'll show you 9 animation style in Kling AI, which allow you to create high-quality video to your project, showcasing both the most impressive results and the challenges I ran into along the way. First up, we have the film noir style, a black and white aesthetic that brings a vintage, dramatic look often seen in classic crime and mystery films. The animations for human characters in this style turned out surprisingly well, capturing a lot of the emotion and mood associated with noir. One of my favorite results was this scene featuring 2 lovers. There's something captivating about how the shadows play over them, moving subtly yet consistently without any flickering or jumpiness. It gives the animation a refined and polished look that really suits the genre. I decided to push the limits with a werewolf transformation prompt, hoping to capture that eerie moment of change. The animation hints at a transformation, with the character crouching down toward the end, almost as if they're on the brink of shifting into a wolf. However, because videos are currently capped at 5 seconds, we don't quite get to see the full change. Interestingly, non-human characters like creatures and fantasy beings also worked well with the film noir style, though there were some unique quirks. For example, when I tried animating a goblin-like creature, the result was mostly effective, but showed some issues toward the end. The creature's head starts to distort and flatten in an unnatural way. This kind of glitch didn't happen with the human animations, so it seems non-humanoid forms still have some limitations in this style. Next up is the vintage historical film style, another area where Kling's video generator really excels. This style recreates the look of old, classic films, and it performs particularly well with photorealistic images. Even when experimenting with unique, imaginative subjects like robots or creatures from different eras, Kling maintains a realistic feel that stays true to the vintage look. One example I tested was a giant lizard animation. It came out well overall, capturing the grainy texture and muted tones you'd expect from vintage film. However, there are some quirks that stand out. As the lizard opens its mouth, the color grading seems to shift slightly, revealing a hint of pink inside the mouth, while the rest of the scene remains in brownish, sepia tones. Ideally, the color inside would blend seamlessly with the rest of the scene for full consistency. In another animation, a woman's hand deforms slightly, which can distract from the otherwise smooth realism of the scene. I also tried out this style with a mini mammoth character, and this animation stood out in a great way. The scene includes a smooth, gradual panning motion as the mammoth walks forward, adding a cinematic feel to the clip. While the movement is somewhat slow, the animation remains stable without any noticeable warping or distortions. This kind of steadiness really helps to keep the historical, realistic vibe intact, especially for those who prefer the subtleties of vintage film styles. Overall, the vintage historical style shows a lot of promise, delivering solid, classic-looking footage with only minor adjustments needed for some animated details. Now, let's move into the sci-fi style animations. While this style brings some captivating visuals, the animations themselves had a few issues. For instance, in one shot, I wanted the camera to slowly pull back from the scene. On the left, I simply prompted the camera to pull back, but the motion ended up way too strong. The camera zooms out at a speed that's a bit overwhelming. On the right, I adjusted the prompt to ask for a slower, more subtle motion, which resulted in a much smoother effect, though it still didn't quite achieve the pull-back motion I was aiming for. There were also some occasional glitches with this style. In one clip, the animation starts off with a rocket, but halfway through, it suddenly switches to a different rocket entirely. This didn't happen often, maybe about once in every 10 images, but it's something to keep in mind if you're aiming for consistency. Another example involved a prompt where I wanted a woman to turn her head. Her head remained still, though the overall animation still looked good. However, with more unusual subjects, the AI struggled a bit more. For instance, when animating a bug, its back end lifted oddly, stretching the torso in an unrealistic way. Some of the best results I got were with the 3D game cinematic style. which brings to mind visuals from Final Fantasy or recent Harry Potter games. This is probably my favorite video. The scene features two characters, a man with a sword in the foreground and a monster lurking in the background. If you look closely, the man's arm holding the sword does show a bit of distortion, but it's hardly noticeable and doesn't detract from the overall effect. I especially like how the creature in the background stays out of focus, subtly moving and opening its mouth, which adds depth to the scene. However, there are still a few quirks. The AI struggles with hands like in this clip, where the boy's hand holds a wand in a somewhat awkward way. At the end of this video, you might notice a flash of text along the bottom, almost like subtitles, showing that Kling has been trained on a lot of game cinematics. Overall, this style delivers impressive, high-quality results with a strong cinematic feel. After trying out Pixar-style videos following my work with 3D animations, I found they didn't perform as well as expected. Many of them had relatively slow motion, which isn't a major issue, but competitor Luma AI seems to deliver much more dynamic movement in similar videos. If you look closely at the eyes, there's some occasional flickering that stands out. While the animation and motion in this particular clip are well done, the eyes don't look quite right. Maybe they're just a bit too bright for this vampire character. You can also notice the background shifting slightly and the face compressing a bit. I experimented with surrealism-style videos, not expecting too much since they're pretty unconventional, but I was pleasantly surprised by many of them. For example, the way the books bend and fall around the figure feels quite natural. One issue I did encounter, though, was the sync shifting mid-video a few times. If anyone has tips on preventing this, it would save everyone a lot of time. Next, I tried retro anime-style videos. I haven't found any video generators that excel at anime yet, but compared to its competitors, Kling performs reasonably well. For example, the detective character has impressive hand motion with his weapon, aiming at different targets. Unfortunately, the background blurs and distorts behind him. I also asked for a dragon to breathe fire, but it generated a bright explosion instead. I was hoping to see fire directly from its mouth. On a positive note, the flying forest spirit turned out well, with particles in the environment and consistent detail in the spirit's shape. Overall, AI-generated anime animations still have room for improvement, but Kling is ahead of many alternatives. Vector animations were a mixed bag. Some had subtle motion, while others weren't as successful. The spaceship animation was one of my favorites. It's impressively consistent with very clean motion. I'll definitely be exploring this style more. In the ASA graphic, for instance, the background shifts and the edges aren't as sharp, though the motion itself is decent. However, quite a few of them experience noticeable deformation. For my final test, I animated some fantasy animal photos I created with Midjourney. These included mythical creatures and hybrids, like a giraffe combined with a gorilla. Unfortunately, the animation often morphs these hybrids into a regular giraffe instead of keeping the original blend. In hindsight, I should have added text to the negative prompt, as some videos had subtitles unexpectedly popping up. As expected, Kling handles photorealistic images well, but I do wish there were a way to avoid these mid-video sync shifts. Overall, Kling looks promising, especially considering they haven't even released all their features or the highest quality model yet. It performs best with photorealistic images, but also excels with 3D animations and renders. If you're looking for ways to make your content more engaging, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for future guides. I'm excited to share more tips and tricks with you in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.